Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Return to the Realm, a rereaders podcast of the Realm of the Elderlings series by Robin Hobb. I'm Kayiu, here with Alex and Leah, and today we're going to be reading chapters 19 through 23, or 19 through 23 of Ship of Magic. So, continuing on from last section, we get to have a little bit more of Wintrow's arc as he grows in and out of what it means to be a courageous person. Um, we get a little bit more of Ronica and Keffria and Malta in the fallout slash aftermath of Malta's disastrous attempt to go to the winter ball. Um, and there's some continued interesting foreshadowing about live ships as we go back and forth between some live ship point of views and characters talking about their perspectives on them. But yeah,
And
before
this is
we
spoilers all.
I was gonna say it. I remembered this time, I swear. But yeah, this is a spoilers all podcast. So if you have not read all of the 16 books in the Realm of the Elderlings series, not just the 3 books in this trilogy, we are going to be discussing all 16 books. So either don't care about spoilers, or if you care about spoilers, finish those books and then come back to us. Yeah, let's get started. Chapter 19, Testimony. Um, I'm so sad we didn't get to this chapter last time because this was like this was the chapter I was so excited for because it's like, yes, talk your shit, Wintrow, which is basically the that's the main thing that happens in this chapter, where off screen Wintrow has had an accident and one of his fingers has gotten crushed. He realizes that it is not going to heal, and so he needs to amputate it. And yeah, that's the entire summary of the chapter.
I think it's really gross that Vivacia eats his finger.
Yeah, it's so weird. It is so strange.
Yeah.
I think it's one of those things where, like, it wouldn't be as weird if you didn't, like, describe, like, how it felt going down her gullet or whatever.
Yeah, and how it tasted.
Yeah.
Yeah, again, like, I think that's just supposed to be another hint of, like, dragon.
Right.
Don't
Like,
the dragons, like, eat their dragon keepers when they die? Like, didn't an accident happen in, like, one of the Rainwild Chronicles where, like, a dragon keeper dies or something? Or is it just the dragons eat each other if they're dead?
They eat their keepers.
That's what I thought. So, like, it's kind of like Vivacia's doing the same thing a dragon would do. Like, it was an instinctual thing for her.
Yeah, she had never eaten anything meat before, yet in the taking of Wintrow's severed flesh into herself, she satisfied some longing that had gone nameless before. And it's like,
Severed flesh. Ugh.
Hunger.
I mean, it's. I think it's like less weird before that because it's like she like absorbs people's like bodies into her, like absorbs blood as like a live ship. It's just that I guess like there it's like just abstractly on the deck versus her just like human form chowing down on it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Icky. Before she eats it, though, like, we get a description of Wintrow kind of going into Vivacia and looking at himself in, like, third person almost. And it reminded me of Fitz going into Night Eyes, minus the fact of, like, Fitz, like, severing all ties to his body. Or, yeah, and, like, his mind just moving. It was like Wintrow did it just, like, temporarily. And Fitz was like, peace out, body, you suck. I'm going into a better one.
Yeah. The way that they can, like, lend strength to each other, or Vivacia can lend strength to Wintrow, reminded me a lot of the skill, like the people that can draw strength from other people, like Burrich being Chivalry's, whatever they called it, like
I think he's just his man, right?
Man, yeah.
Yeah, it's
Or
like King's Man. Yeah.
King's Man, or Riddle does that to Nettle too, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, it reminded me a lot of that.
Yeah, there's like It's crazy because I did not pick up on any of this the first time, and it's like everything, it's like nothing's really obscured. It's just that like she just uses like synonyms for or like similar or like
Yeah.
phrases that are slightly different from the ones she uses in Farseer, and it's like you just don't perceive it the same way.
And I feel like on the first read, you're still trying to figure out how it's connected to the world. Like, you don't really understand it. And, like, yeah, you get a couple mentions of the Six Duchies, but, like, everything's so different and new compared to the, like, familiarity of Buckkeep. So you're, like, focused on that instead of looking at the tiny, subtle details.
Also, nothing is similar. So, like, nothing else is similar. Like, without the little references to, like, the Six Duchies or the Northern War, you could be like, oh, this takes place in a whole different universe.
Definitely.
So you're not immediately thinking about, like, how could those other magics tie into this, you know?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It feels very separate.
But yeah, I guess we're talking about stuff like around the whole like the amputation part, but again, I love that part because I love Wintrow being like, I'm going to show that being strong and being courageous doesn't have to conform to whatever you believe. I can be courageous in my own right and in my own way, and I'm not a coward just because I don't behave in the way you expect me to. It's a pity that this characterization doesn't carry on to the later parts of the section, but like, I appreciate it. We stand Wintrow character development.
I also noticed that in this chapter and in the last chapter, we see two instances of the Vestrite children, or I guess they're Havens, but I don't classify them as Havens. But the Vestrite children challenging their parents. Like, in this chapter, it's Wintrow challenging and, like, standing up to Kyle. And in the previous chapter, it was Malta challenging Keffria. And it's both of the parents who, like, kind of hate the children that are challenging them. Like, I don't think either of them really like Keffria definitely does not like Malta, and Kyle, we know, hates Wintrow. So it's interesting to see them kind of standing up to those parents and, like, separating themselves from their parents and being like, I'm not a child anymore.
Yeah, I didn't think of that, but that's a good point. It's interesting that they are, like, grouped together with the kid that they like the least.
Yeah.
Honestly, it ends up being better for them. It like, or at least for Kyle, it ends up being better for him because he ends up fucking dead. For Keffria, she's forced to confront like, oh man, I have not been there for my kids.
Do we see Keffria, like, realize that? She doesn't. I don't think she realizes it right now. I think Ronica in this section does, but I feel like Keffria is just like, I'm taking control, not I wasn't there for my kids, you know?
Right. I guess I wasn't there in the sense of like, I need to do something, but not in the sense of accepting responsibility for how my kids have turned out, or like for needing to be there for them emotionally, because she does not acknowledge that.
No.
Mm. But yeah, the other scene in this chapter is an Amber section, and there's so much to talk about here because there's a part where like previously Amber was like, I'm looking for a 9-figured slave boy, and then Wintrow becomes a 9-figured slave boy, and we immediately go back to Amber like, do you remember this? Do you remember this? I wonder if anyone like, because I know I don't remember if I like picked up on that the first time I read this. I don't think I did, but like I wonder if someone was like, remembered the 9-fingered slave boy line, came here and is like, oh, it's Wintrow because he's got 9 fingers and he's a slave to his father, and then it's like, oh no, baby, no, he becomes an actual slave.
I feel like the only people who would be able to pick up on that and who would hold on to anything that Amber says are the people who read Tawny Man first and knew that Amber was the fool. I think that's the only way that they would be able to, like, pick up on that stuff. Because I feel like when Amber says that, we don't know her very well. And she's still, like, this weird stranger that Althea doesn't really know if she likes or not. So it's hard to, like, take anything that Amber says and keep it, at least right then.
Yeah. To be fair, I read Tawny Man and I also did not keep it. But yeah. So like for new readers even more difficult. But
Yeah.
if you're on top of your game. But yeah, I also love how like there's a line about how Wintrow railed against his fate, not her being Vivacia. And it's like, yeah, that's exactly what Amber was talking about last time. I look for people who can like defy fate and win.
Yeah. Except I feel like Wintrow tries, but he doesn't win. He doesn't defy his fate.
Well, I think it's also because he doesn't have his white prophet to guide him, so he's just he's being a really bad catalyst, or like just like which honestly very fits of him. But yeah,
I wonder if Althea would have had less success in defying her fate if Amber wasn't there to help her.
mm-hmm.
And maybe the people who have the potential to be catalysts always kind of need the white prophet to guide them in some form or another. Otherwise, they won't be able to, like, harness that catalytic energy.
Mm-hmm. Just like little warnings. Honestly, like it's like if Wintrow, like this is way later on in like the last chapter of this section, but like if Wintrow had listened to Vivacia and not gone into the city, like listened to her like initial warning, like like things would have been so much better for him.
Yeah.
And if he'd heard that from like if Amber had been able to like be there and like get through to him, I think that would have been a different thing.
Yeah, but Amber said that she's looking for a 9-figured slave boy, so maybe all of the stuff that happens to Wintrow like had to happen or would have always happened to him, because that's how Amber knows him or like sees him in her dreams. She doesn't see him as like a little priest or anything like that.
Fair, but I wonder if that's maybe because she like missed the train on that one. Like she was supposed to find him before he left, and then after that she starts seeing him as a 9-figured slave boy. I don't know, because it's like once he's left on the ship, it's like his fate is set in that regard.
Yeah, beats me.
Yeah, I don't know either. It did stress me out when when Vivacia said there were serpents in there, and he's just like, "Don't lie." And then later, she is like, she wanted to call out to him, but she didn't want to wake the serpents. I was like, she wasn't lying. Oh my god, there's serpents in the water. Even though I knew he wouldn't get eaten, it still stressed me out.
Well, and he should have known that anyways, because the serpents follow the slavers. And like, did he not see them when they first pulled in? Maybe Vivacia was the only one who like noticed.
I think the thing was like she like sensed them because they're like under the water.
Uh-huh.
I think if they were like visible, the like ships would like chase them away.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Honestly, like I forgot how like present or like the serpents are, in the sense of like I always assumed that there was like a few small groups and we only saw them when a ship was like far out to sea or whatever, but they're like everywhere. There's so many serpents.
I know, I forgot about that too. They're literally everywhere. It's wild. I feel like this whole section that we're talking about is all like there's a serpent in every chapter, or almost every chapter.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think the only one that doesn't have one is the next chapter, but I might be wrong on that. But yeah, lots of other Amber stuff in this section that I want to talk about, where it's like the in the Amber section, Amber goes to talk to Paragon for the first time and find out about him. Um, and there's like so many clues here that I wish I hadn't read Tawny Man first so I could pick up on, where it's like, I am called Amber, and Paragon's like, but that's not your name. And Amber's like, I've had a number of names. This is the one that suits me best, suits me now. And I'm like, like how much more obvious can you get?
I know. Well, you can get more obvious because Paragon said or like noticed that Amber strides like an angry man.
Mm.
I noticed that line too, and I was like, oh my gosh, clues! I love their friendship. I think it's really pure and cute.
It makes me a little bit nervous though.
Yeah, it is stressful when we know Paragon's so like impulsive and petulant, and Amber's just like, I'll stand right next to you. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like Amber said. Like I've always been more curious than wise.
Mm-hmm.
Which is this the first time we hear like the fools like I have never been wise, or do we get a little bit of that in Farseer? Because I remember the iconic moment of the fool saying that being at the start of Tawny Man.
I think that we got it in Farseer a little bit, but never
Okay.
outright.
Honestly, I'm not quite sure why it's like an iconic line of theirs, but I know that like at least in like the fandom, it's like
Yeah,
the fool line.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, also I didn't pick up on this on my first read, but the reason that Amber's able to like tell so much about Paragon from just a touch is because she touches him with like the silvered fingers, and I'm like, ah.
Is
Which
she
is
really
another.
without her glove?
I think that's why. I think that's why she's able to tell so much about it. And she's like, it like I forget what exactly she says, but like she like touches him and like immediately recoils.
Mm-hmm.
And I think like after that, when she's touching him some more, he mentions about like how she's going into him and how it's kind of like they're like going into each other and like peeking around a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
That sounded very NS and
NSFW.
You're done. Yeah, I couldn't. I see it spelled out, but I can't say the letters in order.
God, I really would love to transition like. Anyway, speaking of NSFW, the next chapter.
Yes. I don't think I have anything for this chapter, so we could.
We could. Yeah, I don't.
Right into the next one.
I have one more note, but it's not important, so let's run with it. So, anyways, speaking of NSFW, we're gonna go to. I almost said episode 25, just reading that. We're going to chapter 20, Crimpers. This is also the start of winter, and when I saw this, I was like, "Excuse me." Like, we had 15 chapters for one season, and then you give us 4 chapters for the other one. Make it make sense.
Yeah.
What is this?
It's a little weird.
But yeah, so this chapter, we cut back to Althea and Brashen. Because of a storm, they're forced to stop at this small, like, it sounds like a hole-in-the-wall town where people usually don't stop. We've had crimpers mentioned before, but here Althea and Brashen almost get kidnapped and forced to work as part of the crew of another ship. I think like the Jolly Gal or something like that. Um, and under the influence of a head wound on Althea's part, Sinden, and also the fact that they are very drunk, and also they were drugged to be kidnapped, they end up having an intimate moment.
More like
Intimate
4
moment.
intimate moments. The chapter ends with 4.
several
Mhm.
intimate moments.
In quick succession.
Yeah, I mean, I don't get me wrong, I do love Brashen. And like the first time I read this, I was like, they're getting together. But on a reread, like it feels a little icky to me because Brashen is like used to being on Sinden and like knows what it feels like and knows what the effects are. And Althea's never been on it, and she has a head wound, and she was like out of it. So I don't know. It kind of feels a little bit like he was taking advantage of a situation.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's weird because also like he it's one of those things where like I feel like he should have known better. He does also like he like triple confirms like, yeah, are you sure? Are you sure? Are you sure? But also it's like even if I feel like it's one of those things where like even if someone consents in that state, does it really count as consent?
Yeah. That's how I feel.
I think it is hard too, though, because Brashen was also drugged, and he, I think, wasn't
Yeah.
fully there either. So, like, they both
Yeah.
did some questionable things that they probably should have waited for.
Yeah, and it's one of those things where like it ends up all right, but it could have been
Very.
it could have yeah, it could have been very bad.
Well, especially knowing how Althea feels about it like later, like she wishes she hadn't done it and she doesn't like that she did it. That makes it like yeah, it works out like in the end.
I think the reason that she doesn't, like, she wishes she didn't do it is just because, like, she's embarrassed that she doesn't want to admit to herself how lonely she is and that she, like, needs, like, anything from someone else. And that's the reason that she wishes she didn't do it. I think that if she had worked through some of her issues, I don't think she would have regretted it as much.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Because I think that she, like, was there for it in the moment. I think she liked it. She had a great...
Obviously, because they did it 4 times.
Yeah.
She even says like, yeah, the other times it was just sort of like whatever, but this was how it was like supposed to be.
Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, I guess like while we're on like Brashen, I feel like Brashen just like completely like fumbles comforting Althea or like talking to Althea when she like tells her whole like traumatic backstory, and like I feel like Brashen's response is just not great. Like it's
No,
good at
he's
some
just like-
points.
It's just like, I want to play with your boobs more.
Yeah.
Well, he did say that...
And then he's like, so
kill-
after you got your wizard charm, you fucked a lot of guys, right? You fucked a lot of guys, and it's like, my God, Brashen.
Yeah, that was a little...
Brashen.
Yeah.
He is still a young, stupid guy. I mean, there's
Yeah.
only so much you can expect from them sometimes.
That's true.
Yeah, it's fair, but I feel like the bar should be higher than after telling my traumatic getting taken advantage of story, asking, "What's your body count though? What's like come on
Right.
now. Like
Yeah.
like we should set the bar higher."
That wasn't one of his finest moments, that's for sure.
Birch would have done better.
Yeah.
And it's frustrating because I feel like at the start of this chapter, he's like when he's like, "Oh, come on, like you idiot, like let me take care of your head wound or whatever." It's very like it's very cute and sweet, and it's like, Brashen, you fumbled it. You could have just stick the landing and be a nice person.
Birch is like gold star Brashen.
Mm-hmm. I mean,
Yeah, Birch
I
is
feel like Birch is
Fire to be.
Brashen who's had time to grow. So
Yes.
Yeah.
we never get to see younger Birch, and but it sounds like from what Patience said that he was still honorable at that time. So
That's just his grandmother didn't raise him to be some little, like, whoring womanizer or anything like that. She raised him right.
well, chivalry raised him right. So
Yeah.
I do feel like Brashen probably will be a better parent than Burridge, though.
Yes, I think so. I think Braxton knows how to work through his like emotional issues, and Birch does not.
Burridge does not know how to work through emotional issues at all. He's just like,
He grunts and like
things
shoves, and he's
and
like,
drinks. Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, Brashen does have Sindon. Like, it's not at the end of the series, but like,
Yeah, that's true.
He only has Sindon before kids, not after.
But yeah, I
Boyo.
love this even more because again, since I read Tawny Man, my first introduction to Brashen is him being like a doting, overprotective father, where he's like, "Oh my god, what are we gonna name the kid? I'm so excited."
Oh yeah, Althea's pregnant in Tawny Man, isn't she?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Boyo.
Ugh.
Wait, that makes that scene so much worse. No.
I wouldn't even name a sim Boyo, and I've named my sims stupid things. Like,
Yes.
so bad.
That's gotta be the worst insult for a name ever. Wouldn't even name my sim that.
Dirty. So before they have sex, they almost get kidnapped. And I was just thinking, like, when that whole thing went down, the second the barmaid started asking questions and knew Brashen's name before he told her, immediately the inner Fitz of mine was like, nope, this is bad news, and he should have known, but he's not Fitz, so he didn't.
Mm-hmm.
And he almost got his ass kidnapped because of that. Fitz would have never.
Brashen was real stupid in that.
I feel like even in Fitz's most like stupid moments, he always is like, I feel like he can always snap out of it and be like, oh shit, like something's wrong. I know that there's something going on. I need to like figure it out. Like he always is aware of his surroundings, and he would never have done Sindon. I think that Fitz, for all he is with like addicted to elf bark and stuff, like he's really a good boy, and he knows how to take care of himself sometimes.
I think that he doesn't like stuff which alters his perceptions too much.
Yeah.
And I think that, which, I mean, it's interesting because elf bark does alter his perceptions, but he's like not in a way that he sees.
Recognizes.
Yeah.
So Brashen was just like, that barmaid wants to fuck me.
Yeah.
That or I get a clean bed. I mean, win-win, am I right?
Right.
Also, him talking about a clean bed was like really funny because he's like, oh, I want a bed that doesn't smell of mildew and oil and oakum. And then later on, he's like kissing Althea and she's like, she tastes like salt water, oakum, and the oil.
Yeah.
And it's like, you don't seem to mind it then, Brashen.
Yeah. Speaking of stuff.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, like, even Brashen says, like, it was pure dumb luck that they didn't get kidnapped.
Yeah. Well,
I think he's
Althea.
discounting Althea when he says that, though.
Absolutely. It was fucking Althea.
Right. Like, Althea had good awareness.
Althea and luck.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Luck for Brashen.
It was luck that the bar was still packed. And it was Althea who, like, sounded the alarm.
Right.
I can't believe the villagers who are like, why'd you hit Padge's daughter? Oh, she was involved in slavery? Yeah, you know, that's just how it goes around here.
Right.
I hated that. I think that if Althea was herself and not parading as Athel, then I think they would have been much less upset about her hitting the daughter, because I feel like it's much more accepted for women to hit women rather than like a boy or a man to hit a woman.
Yep.
And I think that's the reason they're upset. But like, also they're probably using it as an excuse to like continue doing what they're doing and not punish any of the people who are part of the crimping.
Right. The story that Althea tells after her and Brashen go at it made me re-hate Keffria again.
Yeah, she's the fucking worst.
He is, like, such a terrible person.
Yeah.
Like, your sister comes to you, like, crying, being like, I'm scared, this happened, I'm worried, blah, 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 like, obviously upset, and you're just like, you start crying and being like, you're a whore, and you're disgracing our family, and blah, 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 and then never talking, and just giving her, like, a charm to be like, now you can be a whore and you won't have to worry. Like,
Or not that you won't have to worry. The family won't have to worry.
Yeah, the family.
Yeah, you won't shame the family.
Mm. Which, like, yeah.
So gross and misogynistic.
Mm-hmm. And, like, yeah, okay, this is still fuck Keffria, but also, like, I feel like the point of this is, like, to show, or, like, Keffria's supposed to be, like, a microcosm of how, like,
Attitude.
like, I guess, like, big town society's attitude toward women, because it's like, you don't get words like slut or whore from nowhere, and, like,
Yeah.
and it's like, yeah, like Keffria still internalized that, and Althea didn't, and it's still, like, not, you don't get, like, a pass just because, like, that's a societal norm or whatever, but, like, I think, like, the point is, like, yeah, just society slut shaming and pitting women against each other.
It shows, like, a lack of empathy on Keffria's part, and then, like, he doesn't grow from the fact that her relationship with her sister is damaged, because the way she treats Malta shows that she's not above doing that again.
Mm-hmm. And, like, Ronica's attitude, like, next chapter is literally the exact same.
Yep.
Which, again, it shows where Keffria gets it from.
Yeah, I think the only reason that Althea turned out somewhat alright is because she spent most of her, like, time on the ship with her dad. And, like, Ephraim could have raised the kids much better. But he just thought that Ronica was, like, he wanted Ronica to feel like she was in charge of her own life, I think. And he probably also didn't want to deal with all of that stuff, so he, like, gave her all of the responsibility. And she clearly did a poor job of it.
I mean, he also just, like, wasn't as around, so I don't think if there were issues, he just would not have picked up on them.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think even with that, with, like, Althea, we see, like, the, like, catch-22 of it, where it's like she, because she wasn't, like, at home all the time, she doesn't end up with the same, like, internalized shit that, like, Keffria, Malta, Ronica did do. But also, in being, like, disconnected from society, she doesn't have any, like, opportunities once the ship is gone. So it's like, you're damned if you do, damned if you don't, kind of thing.
She's kind of, like, stuck straddling these two different societies, one that's, like, on the sea and one that's on the land. And she doesn't really fit in with either, because she's, like, two woman in one and then two man in another.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, wait, speaking of that, one thing that I will give Brashen points for this. I do, like, there's a conversation, like, a few chapters earlier where they were on Paragon, and Althea was coming to Brashen for advice on, like, what can you do after your family disowns you? And Brashen, I think he was, like, super drunk or whatever, and he was, like, super harsh, where he's like, yeah, basically, you just don't have the same options as I did because you're a woman. And in this chapter, there's a part where he's like, I've been thinking, I think you should go to the Six Duchies, because there you'll actually be accepted. And I think, I like that it's like subtle, but it shows that he's been, like, running over this problem that came up in his head, and he's been trying to think of, like, what is the best solution for you.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
I love how Althea describes the Six Duchies, though, by calling them barbarian women and saying they're more related to the Out Islanders than they are to us. And from what I've heard spend most of their time trying to kill each other off. And she's
They
like,
are related to the Out
"They're
Islanders.
rocks." Like,
It do be
Okay.
true.
most of that is fact. And let's be honest, Fitz would be out of a job if they weren't all trying to kill each other all the time. I think it's fine. I don't see anything wrong with that. At least not right now.
Mhm.
It's fine.
It's especially true when you get to Tawny Man and like one of the chief plot points is literally like a civil war between the Piebalds and the rest of the. It's like the Six Duchies people just trying to kill each other.
They really always are, because it was first the inland duchies and the coastal duchies fighting against each other, in addition to the Out Islanders, the Red Ship Raiders coming and getting them. And then it's the Piebalds and the rest of the people. Like,
Yep.
Six Duchies is never unified, but I mean, that's kind of what you get when the king just takes over places. Because that's kind of what happened.
Mhm. Okay, also, I can't believe you listed all of that and then neglected to mention the glass windows line.
Yeah, I
The
forgot about that.
They don't even have glass in their windows. The horror.
I know. And you'd think that they would, because they definitely need it. At least the coastal duchies need it much more than like anybody else, because it's so freaking cold and stuff.
Mhm.
Like, I'm sure they're freezing all the time. That's why they have those thick
Why they're
drinks.
trying to kill each other all the time because they're miserable and cold.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Speaking of fits and stuff, I noticed that there's so many people who are described as cats or like very feline. It's Althea, Kennett, Etta, even Rapist Devon, but Fitz and all of the people in those books are described as like wolfish or like canines. Because I think even like Verity is described like a wolfish grin or something like that. So it's weird to see. It's like interesting to see how like Bingtown is all full of cats and Six Duchies and Buckkeep is all full of dogs.
Mhm. Just to establish that they're completely different places in the world.
Yeah.
Honestly, I feel okay. This makes me think. I feel like Bucks get shafted because like they're the symbol of like the Farseers, but we don't get like any metaphors with them. So
Yeah.
it's all wolves.
Yeah, I would really like to know how and why their emblem became a buck because it's out of left field.
Hmm.
I think the only reason is because the duchy was already named Buck. And then they're like, this makes sense. So they adopted it. Because I don't think it was the other way around. It couldn't have been they came and were like, we're the family of the Bucks. And then named the Duchy of Buck.
Do they even have bucks on the Out Islands? Yeah.
Did
I
each
don't think so.
tribe in the Out Islands have a like animal? Yeah, because Eliania's is a narwhal, so maybe their like tribe thing
And it carried over.
with Taker, was a buck or something.
Oh, it should have been a freaking wolf at this point.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yep.
I feel like we hear about boars more than we hear about bucks in this series.
Yeah, definitely.
We hear more about Haragars.
Yeah. And the Jeppas.
Mm-hmm.
Jeppas. Okay, speaking of like weird made-up creatures, um, Alex, would you like to mention how you saw sea bears?
Yeah. So, okay, on my first read, it says sea bears, so I pictured them as like weird bears that are in the water. I pictured them like what is it called?
Tardigrades? Yeah.
That's how I pictured them. And I don't know why, but like it just made sense in my mind. And this time I paid more attention to the details, and they're definitely just like sea lions or something. They're not like weird bears.
Microscopic proteins.
not my fault. That's what they looked like. That's what they looked like the entire time Althea was skinning them and everything. So I was like, this is really weird. But like,
How big were they though?
they were like regular bear sized, but they were just like, they looked like that. It was so weird.
I laughed when I saw that picture.
It really adds a spin. Like,
Yeah.
I was like, they're up in the cold. Like, it's got to be this. But it wasn't.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's sea lions or something of that sort.
yeah, that if I pictured them as like that, like my feelings would go from like the current thing, which is I'm so sorry for them. They're so cute and they're just hunting them down to, yeah, we should exterminate the species.
Yeah, well, they were like scary looking. I was like, this makes sense. So that's my confession for the day. I now picture them like sea lions. This read, I realized they're not those weird microscopic bears. They're real ones.
We'll post a picture on the Instagram so people can
yeah,
see.
we have to.
Yeah. I think that's all I had for that chapter.
Me too.
I think I had like 2 more notes. A less fun note and then a fun note. So I'll start with the less fun note so we can end on a fun one. It's like, it's kind of sad where like Althea's like, no, I wasn't raped, but it's like, it's very clear that like she was manipulated,
Yeah.
and like she was 14, so there's definitely elements of like statutory or like rape or like no consent there, and it's like, ugh.
I feel like she was, and she just thinks that she wasn't because it wasn't like violent and because she went along with it, but she didn't know.
She didn't even know what was
She
happening.
didn't know what was going on. Yeah, so it was
Yeah.
definitely rape.
It gives me
It-
vibes of like someone that is trying to tell themselves they weren't because it like is
Makes
easier
her feel
to
better.
digest. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm. Or like someone who is like raped in a marriage and they're like, it can't have been rape because they love me and we're in a partnership. Yeah.
Right. And like the reaction she got from Keffria probably made it worse.
Yeah,
No.
maybe like, oh.
Like
I
she
don't
probably
know.
internalized a lot of what Keffria said to her because she was so young and that's her older sister.
Oh, she definitely did.
But yeah, my fun note is in the group chat I have with Julia and my friend who introduced me to Julia, we were talking about like romance novels and stuff recently, and I think that Assassin's Apprentice had like no good romance. We had like Fitz and Molly, which was a train wreck, and then we had Ketrican and Verity, which was a love story for the ages, but they were separated for half the series.
Yeah.
This series, it's slow. It's a slow burn, but like we get some really good ones in this one, like Malta and Rain and Althea and Brashen. Yeah.
Yeah.
So because I was reading this chapter in particular, and I think that there's a book that Julia recommended to me called The Water Knife, and in that there's like a romance where like the two characters are like uh super badasses because the world requires them to be, but they get to be like vulnerable with one another, and that gave me like big vibes of Brashen and Althea. So I think that she'll really like this.
I'm definitely adding that to my list right now.
What was it called again?
The Water Knife.
Was it good?
Yeah, uh it's like semi-dystopian science fiction where the idea is America has like run out of water, and so it's become like, or like not run out of, but like it's become like a dwindling resource. And it centers around like the titular water knives, who are people who like cut off access to water for smaller towns to reroute it to bigger cities, because like like local governments have basically just taken it upon themselves to like do what's best for their communities.
Right.
Oh shit.
Mm-hmm.
That sounds so good.
It sounds like it will be stressful.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Has Julie started reading Ship of Magic yet?
No, she's her thing is I don't know when I'll get to it, but when I do, I'll binge it in like a week.
So we need to just pester her when we're like
Close.
Close to the live show.
like 2 episodes away from the end, or like an episode away from the end.
Yeah. On the other end, the friend who introduced me to Julia in the first place has started reading Ship of Magic because I pestered him to start reading it. So
Oh, so maybe
that would actually.
Whoa.
I think it would be really interesting if you guys are down to have him on the live show if he finishes in time, because it would be someone who's read live ships but hasn't read Farseer and so is getting live ships as their first exposure to the series.
That's really cool. I like that.
It might be hard for me to not spoil Farseer things, but I would do my
I think we can probably just like say Farseer things and then he just won't understand them.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
I'm sure he won't retain any of the stuff because it's like he doesn't know the characters or anything like that, so it's probably safe. Yeah. It's just so hard not to spoil stuff for like Tawny Man and everything when Julia's on.
Yeah.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
I'm so bad at controlling my facial reactions.
I have to hide, and then obviously when
this is why I have the tea.
Yeah. Like just hold my mug up in front of my whole face.
Mm-hmm. The problem is I feel like you have to do that the whole time she's talking, otherwise like
she'll know.
Yeah, as soon as she like hits on something that's correct, it's like,
Yep. I was trying to play a game with my friends where you had to like turn in an answer to a question, and everyone turned in the answer, and then the person reading them would try to guess who said what. And every time they would say my answer, I'd be like, and they were all like, "You're so bad at this," and I was like, "I know. That's why I have to hide half our podcast live shows."
Yeah.
Definitely not Fitz material.
No.
To be fair, Fitz is not much better, but
no, he's not.
People usually believe him when he lies, though.
Do they? I feel like it's a consistent point that like he's or at least a worse liar than he thinks he is. I feel like when he's like casually telling a lie as part of his job, he's fine at it. But when he's like thinking about it, like I guess like everything he does, when he's like thinking about it, he's like, I gotta make them believe me. He like messes it up.
Yeah.
Yeah. And when it's to the people he knows best, or like who know him the best, he's the worst at it.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Okay. We good to move to the next chapter?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, chapter 21, Visitors. This chapter follows the titular visitors, who are Dello and Sir Wintrow, who have come to call on Malta as an aftermath of Malta's interest in Serwyn's interest in her from the Winter Ball. Keffria and Ronica go into crazy damage control mode and are like, you are not going to be allowed to court our daughter. Two mixed results. And in the middle of the chapter, we get a little interlude with Wintrow and Vivacia arriving at Jamila and kind of reflecting on basically what is Wintrow going to do next.
Ronica like finally realizes in this chapter that she's been doing a shit job of parenting with her own children and her grandchildren. And it's like nice to see some self-awareness, but it's also like too little too late, bitch. Like you fucked up your whole family.
She is the reason. And I wonder if like her mom raised her similarly, and that's why like it's just like this continuing cycle until Malta and like Althea break it, or if like she just started doing this all on her own.
I think it might be that she did it all on her own because she just like because her position I think is like unique in current Bingtown, right? Of being the sole person who runs the estate and home. So I feel like she was probably like thrust into it and didn't know what to do, and she did what she thought was best, but like in the process, she ended up prioritizing the business over her family.
Hmm. And just treating everyone like kids all the time. Like,
Yeah.
Keffria is basically an overgrown child. She can't,
Mm.
like, function unless someone tells her what to do.
And
And
Ronica,
it's so frustrating with Ronica being like, "Ah, Keffria is such a child. She's useless," and it's like, I wonder how she got that way. And I
Right.
love that like Keffria calls her out at the
Keffria
end of the
calls her out.
chapter. Hmm.
yeah.
Hmm.
I was kind of annoyed with Ronica, like, because the way that she thinks about Malta and the way that she, like, talks about her and, like, hates everything that Malta has become without realizing that she's the reason that Malta is the way that she is right now.
She kind of blames it on her mom instead of taking any accountability. And it's like, yeah, your mom had a hand in how shitty Malta is, but you also are Malta's parent. And you could have, like, stepped in at any time if you didn't like what was going on.
Yeah, they both sucked. And, like, nobody, like, and then Ronica's like, yeah, like, where even is Selden right now? I haven't even seen him for a while. He's probably with his tutors, and, like, writes it off still. Like, you need to get
Like,
your
that
shit.
should be concerning to you.
Yeah.
That you don't know where that child is.
We haven't heard from him in like 10 chapters.
No.
I know. It's like we forgot about him.
Like you're worried about Althea being dead. If Selden could literally be like in like a basement or a cupboard somewhere, like rotting away, and no one would be the wiser.
Yeah,
Like,
that's true. I also hate the way that she talks about Malta. Like, Ronica calls her a little predator. Like,
Yeah,
and
and
then
it's like,
if one of them must inherit the Vestrate traitor legacy, she would rather it went to Wintrow than Malta as she was now. Yeah, let's just be grateful that Kyle kidnapped your son or your grandson after abusing him in front of you, and you're like, I'm glad it's him. Who
yeah.
doesn't want this in the first place and would run off to be a priest if he could.
It shows so much internalized misogyny because,
Yeah.
like you pointed out, Kayiu, in your notes, Serwyn is basically acting the same as Malta, but no one gives any. They're just like, well, that's just the way that a boy will be, you know? But Malta, even though she's way younger than Serwyn, is the predator in the situation.
I know, I hate that.
A little girl can't be a predator. That's
and it's like she like vacillates between like being like Malta has no idea what she's doing and she's so innocent to Malta is like a predator. It's like
right. Like a
make
link.
up your mind. And I think there's literally a line where she's like, "It's just as bad for when a woman did it, when a woman does it, as when a man does it." And it's like, well, yes, like that's in general, but like there's mitigating factors and like so in this case, age in general, like the societal standards that men are held to versus what women are held to. Like you got to consider those, Ronica. You can't just be like, these are exactly the same, and I will not be taking any notes.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's like one step forward for Ronica, two steps back.
Yeah. She, like, it is refreshing to see some self awareness in her compared to Keffria. Because Ronica can at least be like, oh shit, I fucked up, you know?
Yeah.
Whereas Keffria won't take any accountability or responsibility for being a shit parent and marrying a shit person. But it is definitely like one step forward, two steps back with Ronica.
And I love just like Keffria being like, yeah, you never gave me anything to do. Like, it was like I didn't exist. Like, and Ronica's like, I thought you would just grow into it. And it's like, you have to like give me an opportunity to grow. You were always so worried about things going wrong that you never gave me the opportunity to fail.
Yep.
Which, like, I really love that scene. I think it's like, it was really awesome. But also, like, it felt a little weird because I feel like Keffria changes so much from how she's presented or like for how she sees herself at the start of the book, and it feels like a big 180 in a way that I think it didn't need to feel like if we kind of got seeds of this earlier.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
Because
Because
it's so abrupt.
and at the beginning of this book, like Keffria talks about how she didn't want to do, like, Ronica would bring her in and then she didn't want to do any of that because she didn't want to get her hands dirty, and like she just didn't like what Ronica was doing, so she left her to do it. So like I think that Keffria is just trying to play the victim right now in saying like, you didn't give me anything, even though she didn't want any of the responsibility or anything like that.
Mm-hmm. She also needs to pick a lane.
Definitely.
Okay. Do we have any more notes for like the Ronica Malta Keffria part of the chapter, or can we move on to the Wintrow Vivacia?
I don't have any more notes at all for this
Oh my god. I have a couple more notes for Wintrow and Vivacia.
Mm-hmm. So I guess my my main note for this part of the chapter is I love like how Vivacia, like, I feel like Vivacia is good for Wintrow because whenever Wintrow like falls into cynicism, Vivacia can like reflect it back at him, and then Wintrow's like, wait, that's not true. People are good actually, and I love how she like leads him back into. She like challenges him to get him back into thinking the way that he needs to,
Mm-hmm.
which I appreciate.
I noticed that the way that Wintrow feels so drawn to Vivacia reminded me similar to how the Dragon Keepers are drawn to the dragons and how they're kind of like glamored by the dragons into like wanting to be with them and everything like that. It's like that pull towards them. And I feel like Vivacia probably has some of that, at least for the family members who are like a part of her, because of that like dragon self.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I didn't clock that at all, but like now that I'm thinking of it, that makes a lot of sense. Like like when Wintrow's like, "I love you, but I don't get why." It's very reminiscent of like Sinatra, uh, and Timara, yeah, or Sintara, yeah. Damn.
Not.
I didn't remember. I just like I saw you smile, and I'm like, what's that for? And I'm like,
Sorry.
We should just call her Sinatra from now on.
I think it's so funny. I love
New
it.
name.
um, oh, we also get like confirmation that like the priests use magic. Like Wintrow's like, yeah, I'd even seen it done on occasion. Small spells to cleanse wounds or to spark a fire, and it's like sparking a fire does sound like outside of the scope of the skill, but like cleansing wounds, that sounds very skill.
Yeah.
And like given everything else we know about Wintrow, feels like they might practice skill.
Yeah. And we do know that there are other magics that like are available in the world. It's just Fitz doesn't have any interest or inclination for them, and that's why he like we don't know that much about them compared to the wit and the skill.
Yeah, the hedge magics TM.
Yeah.
I'm glad we get like a little bit of expansion of the next trilogy with what's her name?
Gina.
Gina, yeah.
Gina. She's terrible.
What's
She
so bad
sucks.
about it? I don't remember.
But I like her cat. She basically like fetishizes Fitz for having the wit.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't realize that.
But he bangs her like a bunch before he realizes that.
Yeah.
And her cat is
I think it's because he's like, she doesn't hate me for having the wit. Cool. And then she's like, oh yeah, animal man.
Yeah. Yeah.
You give me that wolf dick, and it's like, oh god. And then and then like there's the whole thing at the end of the second book where like he has to take out Paget or whatever. And then she's like, I didn't know that you were such an animal. Like and it's like,
Yeah, it's gross.
yeah, it sucks, but I think it's like it's one of those parts of the series which is really good because it shows that like acceptance doesn't just mean like having them around, having the witted people around when it's convenient.
Yeah.
I guess my last note for this chapter is Wintrow being like, I've just been living day to day, waiting for something or someone else to change my situation. I think I need to make a real decision. I believe I need to take action on my own. And it's like, all of that is so Fitz and so Catalyst.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I've just been coasting along. Maybe I should do something about this. Huh. And I feel like that's such a Catalyst thing to like, even though they're the ones who make change, to like 90% of their lives just like go with the flow.
Yeah.
Yep. Fitz is definitely someone where like typically life happens to him and then he reacts to what is occurring.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I just feel bad for Wintrow that the like one action he takes that is like a decision he makes for himself ends up so badly.
And like the reason that it ends up really badly is because he's trying to do something good for somebody.
Yeah.
It's like he doesn't deserve that. He doesn't.
My last note for this section was when Vivacia crossed her arms over herself, it reminded me so much of Paragon.
Oh, I didn't think of that, but that's
Trying
sad.
to like keep stuff in, yeah. Because I think that's the first time that she's done it, or at least that we've known that she's done it.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, dang.
That's interesting. I wonder if it's like a thing that live ships do that's based on a gesture that dragons do. Which I feel like I would remember that if that was the case, but that would be like really cool if it was.
Yeah.
I still don't fully understand how the jesters like have such a big part to play in the story overall. And like the rooster crown, is the emphasis put on that just because that's what ends up bringing Beloved back to life? And all the like when Fitz and him are in the clearing and he like starts acting out the jester stuff.
I don't know.
I think it's just sort of like it was just like one elderling family sort of thing. I don't even think it's like, yeah, I think the main importance is for bringing Beloved back. I don't think it's like historically important.
Okay. It's like important to those characters, but not historically to the world
Rest of the
itself.
world.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. That makes sense to me. I kept like waiting for there to be more with the rooster crown because there's such a big emphasis put on it like in the book and in the fandom and stuff. And then I was like, is this it? Because I was expecting it to be like an object that would save the world or something. And like, obviously I love it for bringing Beloved back, but it brings like one character back. It doesn't like have a greater purpose.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's just like it's like personal significance. Though I think it gets kind of muddled because we get like the whole thing of like the whole chamber with the rooster crown in this trilogy, and it's like, huh, this makes it seem really big and important, but I guess it's just that was one elderling family.
Right. That makes sense.
But yeah, that's all I have for this chapter. Good to move to the next one?
Yeah.
Okay, so chapter 22, Plots and Perils. Um, so we get a bunch of little things in this chapter. Uh, Kenneth is angry because a spate of bad luck makes it so that he doesn't catch up to a live ship. Which honestly, after all the streak of good luck he's had, a little bit of bad luck wouldn't hurt him.
Yeah.
Um, Etta comes up with a plan to capture a live ship, but Kenneth is dumb, so he doesn't listen. Paragon is visited by Mingsley again, but this time by a Chalcedian who is considering buying him uh, instead of it being negotiated with the traders themselves. Um, we get Wintrow running off or like swimming off, I guess, not running off,
Yeah.
um, to Jamila and leaving Vivacia. And then finally, at the end of the chapter, we find out why Etta actually cares for Kenneth, despite him being such an asshole. It's because the charm keeps telling her good stuff while he's sleeping.
At first, when I read this, I was kind of like, why does Kenneth's charm know all this, like, random poetry? But your response makes sense that he put his blood in it, so maybe he knew. Because at first I was like, why the fuck does this dragon know this?
Mm-hmm. If it knows poetry, it should be elderling poetry. Come on now.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly. I just can't fathom a dragon, like, ever caring about something like a poem, because they would be like,
Unless it's about them. Unless it's about them.
Right, like, oh, whatever humans make, like, humans are so stupid.
Yeah. I think it's interesting that we got another section of Kenneth chasing a live ship followed by a section from Paragon's point of view. Like, it's definitely hinting that, like, they are connected in some way, and I feel like subtle, attentive readers would at least start noticing something like that.
Mm-hmm.
I definitely did not, but I'm not an attentive reader either.
I'm not on my first read. I just, like, devour the books, and I'm like,
barrel through it. Yep.
And with so many perspectives, it's hard to keep track of like this comes after this and this comes after this.
Yeah.
Especially with like a first read of a first book, because you're trying to wrap your head around all the characters and the new like world system or magic systems or locations and whatnot. It's like details get buried.
And it's like, why would Paragon be connected to Kenneth? They're halfway across the world.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
I feel so bad for Paragon when like Firth and Mingsley are coming to discuss buying him, and he starts like yelling at them. He sounds like a scared little kid, and it makes me so sad. He's like, I won't go with you. I won't. I don't want to, and you can't make me. You can't. I'll kill you. I'll kill you all. Like, that's definitely what a little kid would say.
Mm-hmm.
And I just felt so sad for him.
And at the end, he's like, no one ever listened to me. Damn, they're going to take me out again, and I'm going to have to kill them all again.
Yeah.
That part gave me chills on my first read, because I was like, oh my gosh, this should be crazy.
Yeah.
Because I didn't really believe like the stories about it beforehand, because I was like, oh, he's just a nice beach guy that hangs out with Althea and Brashen. And then he says he killed everybody. It's scary.
Yeah.
I still don't remember what happened to the rest of the cruise. Maybe they were just assholes. I don't remember, and
Don't
Paragon
remember
killed them
either.
for that. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
Mhm. I don't get why Kenneth's charm is like helping him here because I feel like I guess he like made the charm to help him, but it feels like in all other scenes the charm is like, "Hey, fuck you, Kenneth. You suck. You never do the right thing."
Yeah.
So,
Is it helping him, or is it just like fucking with Etta?
but
Or trying to fuck with Kenneth because it knows Kenneth doesn't really care about Etta?
Yeah, I was trying to figure out whether it told her that because it knew that if Kenneth wasn't forged, he could feel that way towards her, or if it knew that it would make it easier for Kenneth because Etta would be like completely wrapped around his finger, and that's why he did it.
I feel like the charm cares about Etta at later points as well. So I feel like it might just be that like it might be the former, or it might just be like the charm actually caring about Etta. But like the way they
Yeah.
frame it here, like I feel like the way they frame it here seems like more like malicious or tricksy, which is what threw me off.
I really don't understand the charm's motivations in this book as a whole.
Mhm.
It confuses me.
Yeah,
I think
So,
it's
even
motivations are
till the end, the charm is just sort of there.
yeah.
yeah. I feel like it because it's connected to Kenneth. It's like if Kenneth dies, the charm is kind of like useless or dead or lost too. So although it doesn't like Kenneth, it knows that it needs to keep him alive in order to kind of like stay alive as well, and that's why it helps him.
Maybe, yeah. Guess that makes sense.
My only other note for the section is actually about a part of this chapter that I forgot, which is that there's a whole section where Althea and Brashen are in the middle of a storm, and there are serpents trying to harass their ship and knock it over so they can eat everyone. Um, and after like a grueling like 20 pages in which it's basically just like, oh god, the serpent's attacking, ah, um, they managed to kill one of the serpents. And the final line is, that wasn't an animal. It wanted revenge before its death, and it damn near got it. And then smash cut to Vivacia in the next scene. Which,
Oh
like,
shit!
Oh.
they, like, I, every section in this chapter is about a live ship in some way. Or, because you have Kenneth
Or dragons
being
or
like,
serpents.
Kenneth's like, I want a live ship. Then we have Paragon. Then we have, this is a serpent. Maybe they're intelligent. And then to Vivacia. And then to Wizardwood in the last section. So,
Yeah.
all kind of connecting together.
I had a note that just said, like, Etta is really smart, and Kenneth just refuses to acknowledge that in anyone but himself. Like, even sometimes, but, like, especially Etta, because every once in a while Sorkor will say something, and he'll be like, I underestimated him. But he never does that with Etta, even though it's Etta that, like, basically comes up with the plan that ends up getting him a live ship. And he just won't give her any credit.
Yeah.
It's because he's horribly misogynistic.
He's a piece of shit.
He is.
Yep. My last note also is there was a line where after Wintrow, like, escapes, Vivacia says he swam like a dog.
Yeah.
And, like, that's showing, like, someone that doesn't understand how to swim well. And it's just a testament to how little Kyle ever gave a fuck about Wintrow, because, like, if I had a kid, I would not let it be out on my boat with me without knowing how to swim properly.
Yeah.
And it's not like,
Doggy paddles from Vivacia to the docks. Like,
Yeah.
that's a little rough.
Like, that's a problem.
I bet he like fluffed up his oilskin so that it was like actually a floaty so that he didn't like drown if he got too tired. He's like, this is too much work, I can't.
Yeah, it's like Kyle spent all that time to like, while they were still in Big Town, to like, I'm going to teach him how to do stuff, by which I mean I'm going to teach him to be subservient to me. And
Yeah.
like you had like days or weeks you could have started him on some swimming training in the bay.
Yeah.
But yeah, we get to move to the last chapter for this section.
Yes.
Okay, so the last chapter is Jamila Slavers. And this chapter is mostly Wintrow. He's made it to Jamila. He survived his doggy paddle swimming. And as he expected, it isn't all sunset and rainbows there. He ends up at the slavers market, and after helping a slave, gets conked on the head. Meanwhile, with Kenneth, they chase down a slaver. Kenneth is arrogant as usual but this time decides to like be part of the boarding party, and gets his leg chomped off by a serpent.
Which I didn't realize was this soon.
And he blames it on Etta.
Yes, I laughed out loud. He's like, what have I ever done to you that you would chop my leg off? I was like,
He's so
Even though, like,
stupid.
it's
Like
shock.
the
He's in
paragraph.
shock for sure.
Yeah, the paragraph ahead, he says the serpent like got ready or was like preparing to shake its head, and it would either like tear his body apart or tear him from the railing, and it would eat him. So it's
Yeah.
like, you know, the alternative is dying.
But he's in shock that like any of that happened. So he's like, why'd you do that? I didn't do anything wrong to you.
He's expecting her to stab the serpent as though that would do anything from like the
Yeah.
position that she's at.
Right. Doesn't he like hold it against her for like a long time too?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he does.
Yeah.
Fortunately, the rest of the crew doesn't. Like Sorkor, I remember Sorkor being like, "Captain, you would have died otherwise," and he's like, "Shut up, Sorkor, you don't know anything."
I think like he's kind of down bad with a fever the rest of this time and like infection, isn't he?
I'm so looking forward to him being miserable. It's
It's gonna be nice. It's gonna be a nice treat for us.
I think I think like he has a fever, then he healed and is like, he heals somewhat, but then he's like big depresso, and everyone's like pitying him, and then like next book they cut off the rest of his infected leg, and then he comes back to being part of him. He like becomes confident again for some reason.
Right. I think you're right.
Wintrow's with him.
Yeah, Wintrow
Oh, right.
Wintrow helps him get better, and Vivacia.
Man, I hate. Can Vivacia and Wintrow just never meet Kenneth? Please.
It'd be
I
nice.
would.
Mhm.
I would love that.
And ironically, I think I would prefer them dying in like the attack instead of like surviving to go through what they end up going through.
Yeah, I agree. Off topic, but I picture. Have you guys ever seen the movie The Thief and the Cobbler? It came out in like the 90s, and it's it's similar to Aladdin, but like very artistic and super weird. It's amazing. I would recommend it. But I picture like the setting is Baghdad, and for some reason that's like how I picture Jamelia or Jamila or whatever. I put a picture of it in the chat, but
Have you guys watched The Last Kingdom?
Yeah, actually. Yeah.
in a couple episodes, but I haven't.
Have you
watched.
seen? Did you watch the like last season and stuff?
Not that far.
So, Uhtred's son is like a priest or something like that, and that's how I picture Wintrow when he's in his priest's robes. Like, I picture him like Uhtred's son. I'll get a picture right now.
Okay.
Yeah, send a picture. I want to see.
Yeah, I feel like Wintrow going back to the priest robes feels like such like it. They're so ratty and bad, and like now they're like covered in seawater. Why would you do this to yourself?
Right.
Like he's like, I'm reasserting my identity, but if anything, it's showing that your old identity is fading away and on its way out.
Yeah, like as soon as he's kind of adapting to sailor life, he like leans hard back into trying to be a priest.
Mm-hmm.
That's
I
how I
guess-
picture him. The way that he talks in the show reminds me so much of Wintrow too.
It does give Wintrow vibes.
I
But
can't
that's
look at
an
it right now,
amazing
but I'll
show,
check
and
it out.
I definitely recommend. That show is incredible. I binged the whole thing. I love it so much.
Yeah, I've had several people tell me to watch it. I tried to watch the first episode, but it was like right after I finished Vikings. And I
Oh,
think
it's so much better than Vikings, I swear. I can't watch Vikings because of that. Like every time a new Vikings thing would come out, it's like right after The Last Kingdom, like the next season comes out, and I like can't because I'm like they're not my people. And Uhtred reminds me of Fitz a lot.
Oh,
Like I just like he's funny and he does stupid stuff sometimes, and I'm just like I love you. So like you're like Fitz.
anything that gives Fitz vibes, I'm on board with.
mm-hmm.
There's a couple characters in the show I think that remind me of characters in these books. Like the Uhtred's son reminds me so much of Wintrow.
Which makes sense if Uhtred reminds you of Fitz, because like the Fitz and
Totally.
Wintrow would be best buddies if they met.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, my last note for this chapter is just like the whole like the way the whole like death prayer acceptance thing that Wintrow does is described is feels like the skill like so much as like taking away their pain or like numbing them to it, etc. Like there's definitely
Yeah.
something magical going on.
Yeah, it's a much more like subtle thing too, and like the people, like Wintrow said, the people can like refuse it, or like if they're holding on too tightly to their pain, then they like it doesn't work for them too. It's really cool.
That whole part was really sad because he's like, she obviously could survive this. And he tries to tell her, and then she says, "You speak of women, I am a slave." And it just shows how that society like literally thinks. And a lot of them are only slaves because they like couldn't pay bills.
Yeah.
So it's literally like, oh, if you don't have money, then you're not even a woman or a man or a person. And like the one guy says, slaves are not entitled to Saw's comfort. If a slave truly had the soul of a man, he would not be a slave. And it's like, that's just a thin excuse that you're telling yourself to try to live with the terrible things that you're doing to other human beings.
And the fact that he's enjoying doing it too.
And it's like
Yeah.
there's literally nothing delineating a slave or a quote unquote regular person. Like someone could just knock you on the head, pick you up off the street, and like as long as they've got you physically restrained, you're a slave. Like
Right. Yep.
which we see with Wintrow, we see with Selden. It's like it doesn't
Yeah.
like it literally doesn't matter who you are.
It's kind of like divine retribution that Ronica is kind of ambivalent towards slavery. Not ambivalent, like she doesn't like slavery, but she's like, but people that are slaves kind of deserve it. And then like two of her
And she says it
grandchildren.
multiple times.
Yeah, and 2 of her grandchildren end up as slaves. So it's like, mm, be
Especially
thankful for you.
after, like, I feel like Ronica should be able to relate to Raish more than anyone because of losing her own child. And she just sort of,
Yeah, definitely.
yeah. She's like, I do not see it.
There was one thing when Wintrow was walking through Jamelia that kind of bothered me, and it's like he was walking through and saw the like animals caged up and stuff and was like, "Oh, like that's fine because like they're just dumb and they don't really feel anything, but like the people can yell out to you." And if it was Fitz, like it's all the same for him. And that bothered me that he and like I understand like he doesn't have the wit so he doesn't know and thinks it's fine, but like knowing Fitz and how much animals actually feel and stuff like that, it bothered me that he could brush them off. And the only reason that he couldn't like kind of look past the slaves and stuff was because they were yelling out.
And for like, and like, even without having the wit, like, you're supposed to be a priest. Shouldn't you care about all of Sa's creations? Like, come on now.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too.
Yeah, that
Like
part
this
bugs me
chapter is
too.
like the worst of Wintrow condensed.
Yeah.
Wintrow's worst hits.
Yeah.
It just highlighted the dichotomy between Wintrow and Fitz. Because I had the same thought, Alex, when I was reading it. I was like, Fitz would not be thinking this way.
Yeah.
Fitz is better because
Hashtag not my catalyst.
Yeah.
Right.
It reminded me of when Fitz like runs into those animals when Regal's doing his like circle thing and they're all like sick and ill and wounded and miserable and he like can't bear it and he wants to save them all but he knows that he can't and he has to like walk away and it's so hard for him. Whereas Wintrow's just like, I don't care about the animals, I just care about the people.
I hated it.
Yeah.
I also love how Wintrow's like trying to convince himself that he's not a coward because he like took his life into his own hands and like escaped from his like imprisonment with his dad. But he's literally proving that he is a coward because he's like running away from Vivacia and from that connection that scares him the most. Like he is a coward.
Yeah, I didn't think of it that way, but that's very true.
And he even says like in the chapter before or the chapter before that, let me see. It's chapter 21. Vivacia says, "You fear that I subvert the place of your God in your heart." And he like almost admits to that. And then he runs away from that connection because of that, I think.
It's like he has the right conviction, he applies it in the entirely wrong way. Where it's like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
but yeah, and I guess we'll see the consequences of that next episode. How's that for an ending?
So I have one more thing.
No.
Did you guys notice? You can cut this out and put it in, just do some rearranging. But did you guys notice that the slave woman is described very similar to Ketrican? Did you guys notice
No.
that?
I did not pick
She's
up on
like
that.
very muscular, she's pale, she's got short blonde hair, and she's got her eyes were like dull blue, but they were blue. And she's like described as like muscular. She's like a beefy woman.
I did notice that she was like I noticed the blonde, blue-eyed thing because it made me think of like the previous books because I don't think we have anyone blonde here.
Yeah,
But
same.
in like the Mountain Kingdom, there are blonde people. So I had
Yeah.
the thought, but I didn't make the Ketrican
It
connection.
was so much like Ketrican, and she is dying because she like lost her baby. because
Oh,
well, they
yeah.
like didn't have a miscarriage, but like Kettricken lost her first baby too, so it was like I was just like, this is so weird. It's like if Kettricken had gotten kidnapped by Regal, like that could have been her.
Yeah, it shows how like your circumstances can make the end of your story so completely different.
Yeah. But that's all.
Word. Okay. But yeah. So next time we'll be covering chapters 24 through 28, and I think that's the second to last episode. Second to last or third to last, but I think we're running up on the end here.
There's 36 chapters total, I think, plus the epilogue.
Okay, so
Maybe 3 more episodes?
yeah, so 3 more episodes. Okay,
Yeah.
but still, we're like clipping through this.
Definitely.
But yeah, I'm not looking forward to what happens to Wintrow in these next few chapters. But I will relish in Kenneth's suffering for while it lasts.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yes, yes,
me too. I'm excited for that.
Yeah, same.
But yeah, okay. Till next time. Bye.